Hey guys, hope you've all had a great Christmas New Year break. I've been taking things a bit easy myself. Real life has basically been quite full on and haven't actually had a lot of time to be playing, or not as much time as I'd like. And that's sort of unfortunate game wise. Very fortunate for my wife and my kids. Kids are on summer holidays here down under, and I'm just in the business of actually levelling up a few ships at the moment. We've had a bit of PvP over the last couple of days, which has been pleasant. I kind of sat out the first one for various reasons I'll go into a bit later, but what I'm really wanting to talk about, and most of this vid will be the new game features that are upcoming, kind of the state of the game, where it's at, what the development team's trying to do about that, have a bit of a yarn around some of that, and my own thoughts on that, and yeah, just a quick recap of where the server's at, I guess. So, I mean, it's blindingly obvious that you can't please all the people all the time. There's a few people here sort of, hate to be a dev. Yeah, I mean, they have got some really complex issues to work through. And I guess as we're kind of all aware, the game is basically, it's a fantastic game. It's got a lot of promise. The development team I know are working hard on it. And I communicate with one or two of them from time to time, and I get some feedback from other people. And just throw some ideas out there. Right now I'm just going to go through here and we'll just sort of drop a few tiles, going to level a few ships up, make sure we've actually got some troops on them. And for those who are new to the game, this is about the only way to grind things out. Now that's actually one of the things that we really want to talk about. One of the things the development team have been coming up with is how do we make the leveling up a little bit quicker. They're kind of caught in this weird situation, I guess, whereby They've got a bunch of players in. They need to get new players in, and how do they go about doing that? And one of the things that ideas they've come up with has been that they might do shorter seasons, perhaps about a month or so long. And if you've checked in Discord lately, you'll realise there's an announcement actually stating that this season ends around the 28th, 29th of January. We'll go into a new one. One assumes that the poor buggers who are stuck out in the second server, and there aren't too many of them, will then get merged in with us, and I guess the devs are intending to sort of rinse and repeat that for a short while, and the reasoning behind that is they need to onboard and keep and create a decent and healthy player population, at least in one server, while they're trying to earn the revenue to actually start getting out there and getting marketing. And yeah, they've got some good ideas around how they might go about that. I did notice, and someone pointed out to me, I think that was actually in Discord, I don't work here, pointed out that they've actually got some vacancies open for a couple of 3D visual artists. So obviously things are tracking in a direction of expansion for the Nova team. And obviously those guys, if you've come from Rise to War and you're expecting kind of, I guess, almost miracles from this team, they are working them, but remember they're a team of, overall the whole company's got about 150 people in it, maybe 152 now, who knows. And Rise to War from NetEase alone, just working on the development side of things, not including all these sort of superfluous and ancillary things going on, had somewhere in the region of about 5,000 staff, I think it is, 2,600 of which are working in mobile game development. That's a big disparity, so I kind of forgive these guys for not moving quite as fast as we might be used to with a larger games company, but man, this is a good game. The counter system, the ships, everything are very well thought out. For sure, there's a few glitches left. There's some rebalancing to do on Strikecraft. All those things we know are on their agenda already. And certainly getting the glitches sorted and battle reports maybe functioning a little bit more logically is something they need to do. So there's this kind of balancing act going on whereby they need to make things good for those of us that are here playing, the sort of the hardcore gamers, but they also need to get some more street traffic in. And one of the things that was brought up by tasks in our sort of our Discord discussion with the developers, which some of the other your other Discord servers might have, One of the discussions was around how do they go about doing that, and the route I think they seem to have landed on as a team seems to be that they'll try and get a more immersive experience. So we're looking at more storylines and backstories, which I'm really grateful for. That was been talked about at length in the Galaxy chat some days ago, and so people are looking for a bit more immersion. But the team wants to tie that in, as I understand it, with a kind of a story mode that we can play as well if we wish to, and that it might onboard more casual gamers who will then hopefully part with their cash and provide the rest of us hardcore gamers with a better gaming experience, because that will then be invested initially into expanding the team a little. As I've said, there's two new members coming on board, and also what one would hope is that that then the rest goes into marketing. So that is the hope, and it's a real fine line to tread. And equally, those of you who are playing, have a little patience with us with the guild leaders and officers around here, because certainly of the four or five major guilds in the game, we're all working really hard to ensure that everybody gets some PvP, but that we're not actually knocking other players out of the game and turning them off it. We've got a very small player population already. We've probably got enough to run 4 decent sized factions when there are actually 8. And we want to try and keep it that way. None of us want this game to die. We probably made a mistake as CMPS, or I'm not sure if we were CMPS or ROGs back then. Certainly when we were all still together a few seasons back, we absolutely smashed through or hoed through the entire map at one stage. With entirely new players from Rise to War coming in who had literally just had the closure announcement. So that must have been back in October, November of last year. And hundreds of players actually just left because they just weren't used to being, I guess, the top guys in the game anymore, and they were getting slaughtered, and we did not hold back, and perhaps we should have. So since then, most of the guild leaders have been trying to work together to ensure that new players coming into the game, and there have been a lot since the beginning of January, are not so significantly disadvantaged in that they can't actually play the thing. So we're not moving at quite the same speed, excuse me, and we're being a bit more particular about PvP and trying to get decent PvP in sort of contestable zones rather than just across crossings, which bores everyone to tears, and keep the game trucking along that way. And so now and again, each one of us as guilds might have a bit of downtime for a day or two. But that said, where we're at, I think we've been in PvP since day 3. We've had about a day and a half off, and what are we on now? The 14th of January, so it's been going 15 days. Maybe a bit less. I think when did it come out? It was New Year's Eve for me. So so 2 weeks, 14 days, and all up 3.5 days with no PvP. That's not a bad hit rate for any kind of, essentially any Season 1 server for this type of game. And most of you may have come into Rise to War sort of later in the piece. If you've come in there, you'll remember your Season 1. There was not much going on at all. Certainly not a chance of having PvP 80% of the time. And I think really the balance has been struck reasonably well, but we would ask those who are impatient about some of this stuff, be it trying to level up and grind themselves, or be it wanting to get directly into player versus player themselves, to just kind of try and bear with us as guild leaders and officers, and bear with the dev team. They're coming up with some good things. And one of those things, and I've talked about it before, that they've had this idea of a toggleable map to go between essentially the sort of the sci-fi and fantasy, as they call it, I think, setting. Essentially, it's more about land-based and air-based, if you like, system. So there was this horrible thing here that honestly my 13-year-old could, sorry Des, but my 13-year-old could have done better with this, with just putting a pretty picture of a cloud in the background. That's not really cutting it, I'm afraid, and so anyway, I'm just going to get rid of that, because I just these old eyes can't deal with that. Then you had this other thing with the certainly where in the reports you could actually click on here and you could turn the fantasy or the sci-fi theme on and off, and we've got these little soldiers here, and cute as they are and AI generated, and they've done a pretty good job of it, I guess. There's a few issues there, but that's about it at the moment. But the fact that they're bringing in these two new, or adding two more 3D visual artists to the team, gives us some great hope. And certainly the images that we've seen, and we'll just flick through to some of them here, they're coming along, so they're moving along. Last time round, I think we only saw something vaguely to do with Vanguard. We're now looking at Vanguard. We've got a theme here for Eldarin, we've got a theme for Ograx, and one for Arcos. Someone had the bright idea of saying, well, how can we change Arcos? Well, we'll stick a bit of purple in there, a bit of marshland, and I'm jest about this, but obviously it's moving along, and that's the direction that we seem to be going in, and hopefully that'll bring in a few more players and a few of these kind of die-hard people who said, no, I can't play anything that's space-based, I've got to play it land-based or medieval or whatever. And I'm like, I'm kind of old school. I still am a huge Lord of the Rings fan, don't get me wrong on that. I worked in the Fearless Pioneers sort of content creator section as a lore master in Rise to War in the very early days, and across the betas for that. But I was there to game, and more than anything else, and I wanted a good game, and it was a good game. And prior to that, I played some very good Geostrat-style war games as well. I mean, Mortal Conquest, also by NetEase, was fantastic. A bit dated now, and it still exists as Infinite Borders, which was the original Asian version of the game. And I think a few people have gone over there, but it's so slow. I mean, if you think this is slow, that's even worse. And so these games have come along a lot since then. And the way forwards, obviously, to try and bring more people in, is to put in that land-based mode. For a content creator, that's a complete disaster and a nightmare, because we'll be talking and looking at things that people will not necessarily have any concept of. So I'll be coming in here and looking at my Radiant, and someone else is thinking, well, Radiant looks like this fella here, and these are the ones here, these are our, I don't know what they are, these are our Warhammers, and these guys here are our glaives. It's nice to see these guys are actually holding glaives, and these ones are actually holding Warhammers. That's quite pretty, but there are a few which are a bit kind of off. Cyclops, I thought Cyclops only had one eye personally, but these guys have got two, so there we go. Maybe it's just one and it gleams very brightly out of the helmet, I don't know. But there we are. I kind of become accustomed to this after probably a couple of seasons, and I'll likely stick with that unless I don't have any other choice. But going back to some of the things that we've got coming up, one of the big things is that finally, thank God, we will hopefully, fingers crossed, it looks like we're actually going to get to a situation where we can't see what types of ships are marching at us. So if I just come across here and I'll sort of scroll in a bit here, and I'll know that here obviously this is Mjolnir, right? Okay, great. So in future, if that's a Vanguard ship, that's probably going to look like a Radiant to everyone else. I'll be able to see this myself as what it is. Everyone else will see it as something completely different. And I'm just going to sort of scroll away and have a quick check of that to see if that's actually been instituted already. If I just come over here and look one of the enemy ones, that's no, so that's a Machiner. So I'm assuming they're not all going to look like Machiners for Arcos. They're probably going to look like something completely different. So that's something that's coming up, is that kind of that fog of war, and a lot of us have been calling out for that, just to make it way more interesting, so you can't immediately counter things that you see coming in. You've got to actually send in a scout ship or whatever. So that's a huge thing, and that's really good news, certainly in my opinion. I think probably that opinion is shared by many. Now I'm just going to sort of consult my notes. What else have we got? There's one thing I wanted to talk about actually, and that is the fact that I've lost count of the number of people that just say, I just want a PvP, I want to get into PvP, win or lose, I don't care what level it's at, do. That's great. Good. Yeah, we all want to get into PvP, but there's some other things that surround these games, and my rough theory is that these games are kind of won essentially by 30% is about diplomacy, 30% is on your group's abilities to sort of grind out the levels on your ships, and to help one another doing that. And certainly we do that in CMPS. I lost count of the number of people I've helped get high level tiles early on in this game. And that's really to bring everyone up quickly to speed and operate at a decent level as a group. And I've talked to a few people from other groups who have unfortunately not had the same experience, but there we go, everyone does it differently. But for me, 30% diplomacy, like it or not, this is a geostrategic war game. You signed up for a geostrategic war game, and a big element of that is actually diplomacy. Grinding levels up as a group. Tile cleaning, another 30% on tile cleaning. Yep, PvP is not all about one ship hitting another. That is gold. That is wonderful. That is lovely. Nobody gives a flying shit about what war ranking you are. What we care about is whether or not you're taking the regions and completing the chapters and winning those, and whether you end up with either fire on or Nova at the end of it. That's the ultimate goal. That's the ultimate goal. And if you do that, and half your players are not anywhere near the war ranking, it really doesn't matter. So those of you who are not doing so well at that, but you're up there and active and actually taking those empty tiles and tile clearing and tile blocking and that is a 30% of the game. 5% of the game is your own personal strategy. How you work things out, how you allocate your resources to your buildings, what you're going to build, what ships you're going to run, what you need particularly for yourself. And the other 5% of the game is actually the ship-on-ship fighting. There you go, 5%. 5% of it matters. And you can argue with that all you want, but actually that is a geostrategic wargame. It is the same across the board. If you don't like it, I'm not sure why you're playing. Maybe there's a whole bunch of people here who really suck at first-person shooters and they can buy a win. I don't know. It's beyond belief to me, but this is like chess on steroids as far as I'm concerned. So I just wanted to sort of chat around that. You got to get into your head that actually that is how these things run. Other things we need to talk about. The limited time offers. Oh my god, love them or loathe them, they're here to stay. They will come up from time to time, and all we can say is, yep, that's great. We just, we hope that money is then going to be invested in widening the population for the game. A lot of people moaning about the most recent ones. They're not as good as straight out buying legendary officers like they were the last time round. Actually, I think this time round this sort of strikes a nice balance. If you've got a lot of money to burn, certainly for me as someone who actually can't afford to spend anything on, there's my paltry 105 gold up there at the top. Unless other people are very kind to me and contact the divs and say, right, we want to transfer a bunch of money onto this guy's account. If you want to go ahead and do that, feel free. I love that. That's how I've got to where I am here with my sort of 1 or 2 mastery level 5 epic ships, and I'm very grateful for it. From my perspective, I think actually the new LTOs, they've actually pinged that just right, because there's still that chance of luck. You're still getting something extra for your money. It's not quite as good in most cases as the bonus gold that you get as a one-off each season, but it's a little bit extra. So I don't think there's too much to complain about there. And if you're sort of sitting there complaining that you can't outright buy a whole bunch more legendary officers, then I've got no sympathy for you. Sorry. Just suck it up. Keep spending. We love you for spending, and that's great, and that's going to grow the game. So yeah, kudos to you guys for going out there and parting with all your cash. that's fantastic. Just going to take a break for 1 second. We'll come back to a few things in a minute. A minute for me, and probably only a second for you. And so we're back on, and this is let's go through some of the things that I found out this season so far. One of them is this Odin. Odin's fantastic. I seem to remember reading or working out that it actually has some of the best base stats in the game, and I'd always kind of overlooked it a bit, because honestly it kind of seems like it shouldn't really do very well, because it's not got early burst damage in turn 1, it's doing most of its damage in turn 2, but I tell you what, if you can survive that first turn or 2 of battle, this thing just pumps out the damage. It's truly remarkable ship. And so I'm sitting here, and I think it was my Odin's a mastery level 3. I think that's the highest mastery level legendary ship I've got. I managed to actually get it up there, and damage against close range strike craft plus 30%. I mean, that's whopping when you're coming up against monostack tanks. That's incredible. And even if just here in PvE, I mean, I'm running this thing with what I would term primarily junk officers, but it's not really. I mean, this Gannicus, I've got this entirely from the battle pass over the last sort of few seasons, and so you too could get your Gannicus up to this sort of 3 augmented stars. And I do quite like this normal attack, 33% chance to inflict confusion for a round every single round with ship power 44. For me, that's amazing. And we kind of throw this Elizabeth around all over my ships, and we chucked her on. In fact, I was supposed to have, hopefully I managed to put her on Machina before I sent that out to level up. I'm fairly sure I did, but I'm having a senior moment on that one. Regardless, Odin is just rocking it. I actually managed to crucify a few ciphers with this little sort of 38, 39 level Odin. It came as a shock to me and them, believe me. And so we got that there. I'm trying to kind of, I'm just slowly trying to bring up my hammerhead. Oh my gosh, we got a nice good old game glitch thing going on here where my reports don't want to add up and I can't click on a thing. We are just going to pause this and fix that. Hey devs out there, here you go, bug in action. And so yeah, we're back again. We've gone out and reloaded the game. Hopefully something's going to work now. So we've got that. Anyway, where were we? We've got my hammerhead out here again. Just thrown out sort of 3 kind of officers I had lying around, and in one of my decent ones on here, it doesn't seem to have done too well against that. Oh, a corruptor. Oh, of course, never mind. Should probably have had an officer with some confusion protection on. That might have worked out a little bit better. Machina's coming along nicely up to level 44. As I say, haven't really been grinding it out the last few weeks. I've been more focused on real life, and there's make no excuses for that one. Overlord has been very, very kind to me in PvP over these last sort of couple of days, or primarily yesterday and today for me, and Corruptor is just sort of coming up to level. Hopefully we'll have him ready for a big stoush in Nova and fire on later. So that kind of big PvP we were talking about, we'll just sort of hop in here. Some of these markers have gone off now, but what have we got here? When you've got Roma as the highest in there, 21 hours strikecraft use, 4,112. It's not a particularly large battle, and we had some huge markers here earlier on. We had a big stoush for Lucinda. We kind of arranged with Arcos that we were going to each attempt to take our own side of the crossings at a given time, and then it was a sprint into Lucinda, and we've just left it as a contestable PvP zone. And Arcos got in there and did a brilliant job, steamed in and managed to get the planet very early on in the piece. This is actually in range of all their forts who are kind of lined up round here. We'll just go in and we'll see that they've got outposts, sorry, not forts. That's a Rise to War and Immortal Conquest hangover. All the guys down here, and like our RTK captain, Candy, Darkside Dark, Asmael, Fatal Arousal, Deja Vu. These guys here, and just see who else we've got here. They're fantastic. They've really put in. I mean, especially sort of the big guys. Hanky's around here somewhere as well. They've been great. They've really hammered it in and given us a real run for our money. At one point in time, that planet and everything around it was absolutely red. Until probably about 18 hours ago now, we had a couple of really big pushes, and more than anything else, we just kind of swarmed them with numbers. We've got some fantastic PvP guys, and in other words, some big dollar accounts sitting in our guild as well, and they do make some difference. But what really made the difference is just the huge number of players we've actually had active in here. And I went through earlier on and just had a little look around this map at these blue dots, and we've got over half our guild have actually moved up to various front lines. The guys who have got more relocation tokens have come here and will then go over to here eventually for the Nova Fire on battles, which we hope to have. And actually, our whole back regions here are quite sparsely populated, and that is a first, certainly, that I've seen in a season like this, where we actually managed to get that many people engaged. So obviously our recruitment policy, whatever it happens to be, seems to be working. I think it might be more luck than judgment at this stage. We've brought a few people in that we knew from Rise to War, and they've brought a few more friends along, and then some of them have moved on to other guilds, and some of them moved across to us from other guilds, just to sort of catch up with friends. It's quite nice. There's a nice little community building around it. But anyway, coming back to this, so we took this probably my time, 9 o'clock this morning. That'd be about 14 hours ago now. And then just managed to actually kind of clear out. We'd cleared out most of this area here, and we're just sort of now busy cleaning on. And I suspect at this stage there's probably not going to be much more of a fight in the area. There might be, there might be a little bit outbreaks of PvP here and there, but realistically all we're waiting for is these season chapters to finish up now. It finishes 1 day and 12 hours ranking, and we're probably second, I think. Second after no, we're first. No, we're second. So Arcos whilst they've lost that, they've probably gone on and taken a couple of other regions down the bottom here, which are real easy takes, to be honest, and if I was in their position I'd be doing exactly the same thing. And we've got Ograx and Tyrannus coming down as well and shaping up. I don't know, they had some massive battles earlier on. This was where the place to be was. Just to explain a few things, sort of in the early days, Ograx kind of split up, and I think Chaos, as it was then, and they've now sort of disbanded, came in with a couple of other guilds into Pramvana to take us on. And the Zorro, who have got, there's some serious money in Zorro, and they came in and took on Tower. Now, initially Tower was going to be in Vanguard with us. They started off here, and it just got too crowded to have two big guilds in one faction. So a note for the future, if you're planning on going into a faction with another big guild, it's probably not going to work out so well, because there's just not enough resource tiles for that. So anyway, they moved over here, so they were on the back foot a bit in Tyrannus, because they were sort of probably 12 to 24 hours behind. But there were some huge fights going on between Tower and Zorro from Ograx across some of these crossings. I think it was probably down here somewhere. Since then, they've kind of made a sort of an uneasy agreement, I think, peace agreement, so that we can all end up having some great contestable PvP in Nova and Firon when that opens in a day and a half. And I guess the entire server that's here for PvP is sort of looking forward to that. Feel a bit sorry for the guys in Terra. We've got them blocked in. We'll probably make an arrangement in the same way that we did with separate guilds in Terra last season, for them to be able to come through and get to the centre. Hopefully, Arcos, Tyrannus, Ograx will let Stoner, Omega and Eldarin guys through that want to be able to come through in PvP, but that's up to them. They can choose what they want to do. I'm not going to tell them what to do, but I'd imagine we'll be letting the Terra guys through if they want to come through. There's probably only about 15 of them in there. Let's have a quick look at how the factions are ranking at the moment. Leaderboards. So the top faction at the moment in terms of influence generations is Arcos, then we've got us in Vanguard, then you've got Tyrannus and Ograx, and frankly we're all really quite close. That is remarkably close compared to previous seasons in this game. So it is growing. You used to have maybe 2 factions that would be dominant. You've now got 4, all fairly equally balanced, and then you've got the rest of these. You've got Terra and Eldarin, got a few more players in Stoner and Omega. Probably there's not many people there at all. So the top guilds at the moment, that's currently us, and that is purely on the basis that we've got all our main players in one guild, whereas Arcos have got Rogs, have got Hive Mind as well, or HIV as I think they like to be called, and then you've got Jedi in there as well. And so Tyrannus, you got Tower and Lock, both equally good. Great guilds there. Great respect for Tower. We've allied with them previously, and they're great to deal with. The guys from Frog, and I just want to give a shout out to the guys from YNSP. I'm not sure where they rank, probably not too highly. There's about 3 or 4 guys, I think. Where are they now? I've probably gone past them. Why you shall not pass. These guys have been spectacular. When we were fighting hand and tooth against, or tooth and nail against Ograx early on, the tile spamming that can come from 4 or 5 players is phenomenal. And I'm hoping that we share a faction with them next time round, because a big shout out to you guys, Tesco Club Golf, much respect to you all. So top players, this is influence, and it really doesn't actually matter anything at all. These guys are not fighting, so that they can just go off and do whatever the hell they want. Some of these guys here have got some good war rankings, so certainly Asmael, oh my god. If you ever run into Asmael's Mjolnir, you'll never forget it. I managed to crucify 3 armies against it today, none of which were tooled up, admittedly, for handling his Mjolnir. But needs must at the time, so we figured that we'll all throw our whatever we've got at him, and everything came away and it's still standing there. It's like a will not die moment. So big respect out there. And what have we got down here? I don't think we've got too many of our people up in this at the moment. Most of us jettison tiles to go into PvP. War rankings, where am I at? 42. I'm actually reasonably impressed with that, purely because I didn't take part at all in the first PvP with Ograx, because we had a bunch of new people in who really wanted to PvP. So I just kind of sat down the bottom and held the southern flank. And that suited me just fine, because I was out doing things with the kids anyway. Now, I started, I think it was about 89, 91 this morning, or yesterday, before we really started hammering away at that Lucinda area against Arcos. We've now gone up to 42. Yeah, I'm quite happy with that. Given the amount of money that's in a lot of these accounts above me, I don't think that's too shabby. We'll probably get into some more Nova Fire. I'm not really chasing it down here at the moment, and I'm not into the business of chasing down particularly brand new players or free to play players unless they actually happen to get in the way of a strategic goal. So I don't know if we're going to improve on that much or not. We'll see over the next few days, and that's probably about it for me for now. We'll just sort of do a quick quick recap on the things we talked about earlier. So we've got this new fantasy thing coming up. We don't know when that's going to happen. I'd imagine that's a lot of work. In the meantime, the dev team are trying to shorten the seasons. We're looking at about a month long-ish, and you'll have already seen that the battle pass, whilst not fully accelerated at the same speed it was for the sort of 4-week season we had the tail end of last year, it's still going faster than it did originally, and the seasonal phase unlocks are still going faster. Certainly this ranking system for the number of regions gained used to be 7 days. I think it is now 3 days, and the whole idea behind that is to open up Nova and Fire on for us, so we can all get in there and have a big stoush for the 2 weeks that are remaining of the server. And one of the big things the devs are trying to look at and get something sorted fairly quickly for next season is that their ship leveling speeds might be a bit faster. So I guess that means they'll give out, more experience for each tile that you get or whatever, or perhaps they'll look at throwing some scrolls our way. And there is actually a facility for that in-game. There is actually a function that sits there somewhere. If we just go into our ships and we actually go to ship level, only be used on a ship under the level of 40. I wonder where they copied this game from. Look, here's a Moonvale. There we go. So there's a function there for this. I hope they don't do that for just under level 40. It would be nice to be able for everyone to be able to get things up fairly quickly, not just the guys with the huge accounts or the guys who, like me, who spend anything up to 12 hours a day in the game. So there's that in terms of the leveling. What else have we got here? I'm just scrolling through a list off screen, but so we've got the shorter seasons. They want to get the story mode in. There's some reasoning behind that, and basically they need to onboard more people, and we all need them to onboard more people, or the game's going to be dead, and we don't really want that. So they're going to look at running some marketing at some point. They need to get some revenue in to do that. That's my take. That's not something that's necessarily been said by the team. And as one of the devs pointed out, basically the vast majority of mobile gamers are kind of casual. They just want an escape from their lives, something clicky to make the work meetings go by faster. I'm reading this verbatim while they're checked out from said work meetings. Great. But if they can cater to those casual players and get them in and get more foot traffic in, the game picks up. It starts to trend in stores. And that's what we want to see, and we want more people being attracted to it to come in, and they might only play a bit casually and play these story modes through, but it helps sort of fill servers up. It helps generate revenue. That means they expand the team. We get new features, we get problems sorted, we get glitches sorted quicker, bugs sorted quicker. We might get, different types of servers at some point in the future. And again, this is me just generalizing. This has not come from the dev team. And the comment was actually made that with Rise Towards 2.0 tried to solve a problem with the marketing math not working, and their solution was to go even more hardcore on it, and well, basically they killed the game. Half the player population left within 3 months. The revenue halved or more within 8. And so clearly that just puts your game into a sort of death spiral. So obviously we want to avoid that, and the dev team have sort of looked at that, but they're trying to do this fine balancing act. They've got to bring people in, but they want to retain the hardcore gamers. They really value them. That has been made very, very clear. So the story mode will look to hopefully also bring a bit more immersion in the game and the background to the game and the different factions and so on, which was talked about by players, and a lot of people are calling out for that, so that would be good. So players also made the concerns about spending too much time leveling and not enough in PvP. In the dev teams acknowledge that, and there's things they can work out around accelerated battle passes and improving ship leveling. And I just want to sort of reading through here, the story mode, something existing players have been asking for. It's an opportunity to build connective tissue to complete areas of the game that have gaps, like how to earn credits for relocation tokens. So that's still on the radar, and obviously they're going to try and do that, and they want us to have fun, and they also want new players to have fun too. So somewhere along the line they're going to sort of tread this balancing act to get the game improved, and much kudos to them. It's probably a thankless task being a developer in a game like this that actually cares about their community as much as they care about trying to generate revenue. If they were just here to generate revenue, they'd have probably given up by now, to be perfectly honest. But they're trying to build something that's bigger than themselves and that's bigger than us, and all kudos to them. I respect them for that. That's all I'm going to say for now. I hope you've enjoyed probably listening to this in the background. There's not much to actually look at other than those new pretty graphics. And it's really time for this old man to go to bed. So signing out, Kia ora, ka kite.